visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It's Thursday, August 16th, 2018. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. We've got a lot to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room, ready to put you on the air with your comments and questions. And so let's just get right on into it now here. Starting with the war zones. And there are so many of them over there. Apparently, the militant propaganda in Syria is really cranking up ahead of the battle for Idlib, because pretty much Idlib is going to be the end of this war. There may still be some pockets of resistance that are going to have to be dealt with, but Idlib is the last major stronghold, and ISIS is out there trying to attack positions of the Syrian Arab Army and its allies. And again, it's all centered on that Al Tayyam oil field that ISIS was basically plundering, smuggling over the border to Turkey here. So they're estimating that there are about 1,000 members of ISIS in the Homs Deir Azor Desert, and according to some sources in the U.S. zone of responsibility, which is what the U.S. set up for itself, it's about 1,000 members. So they're not going to do very well. This is all but over. And of course, once it's over, the U.S. doesn't really have a reason to stay in Syria, although they're insisting they must stay in Syria because ISIS and Al-Qaeda could come back. No, I'm pretty sure the Syrian government and Russia can handle that. Now, apparently, ahead of this major battle that's coming on up, Moscow basically got the Kurds to step on in and join the Syrian Arab Army. Russia and Turkey are going to cooperate. So they're all coming together into this force. This is going to be a major battle. And again, it signals the end of the Syrian war. Now, up in Ukraine, the OSCE has published a video showing cargo trucks on the Russian Federation side of the border with the Donetsk People's Republic. Now, the video doesn't show that there's any military markings on the truck, but that hasn't stopped Ukraine from screaming it's proof of military aggression. It's proof of military aggression. And the Russian military analyst Boris Rosin basically says it's worth noting that, as usual, this evidence once again lacks any facts, and showing military vehicles and equipment, which as always does not show up in the satellite images and is apparently shy. The Americans on this account say they have videos but will not show them to anybody because they're a secret. We're just supposed to take the word of the U.S. government. We have the evidence. I have a list of the names of communists, for those of you old enough to remember Joseph McCarthy here. So down in Yemen, things are really, really bad. They're getting worse. And over at Information Clearinghouse, they had an article with a title that gets right to the heart of the issue. I don't remember voting for U.S. bombs to murder little kids in Yemen. And here we have Saudi Arabia that went on in and blew up a school bus in the middle of a marketplace. No combatants present, all civilians, all non-combatants. Now, that raises an interesting question. Donald Trump launched 2 cruise missile attacks into Syria because Assad supposedly was murdering people with chemical weapons. As it turned out, hadn't really happened. But isn't it time for somebody to bomb Saudi Arabia for all of these war crimes? Because that's what they are. When you target a school bus full of kids, when you kill more than 50 children, along with market goers standing around there, that's a war crime. Now, as you know, there's a little bit of a tension, if you will, over in Turkey over the arrest of this American pastor. And it's being portrayed in the corporate media that this is, an assault against Christianity, and let's get the crusades going again here. But apparently, this pastor, Andrew Brunson, has been revealed to be CIA's chief in Turkey, using the guise of being a pastor as a cover. In other words, he's a not officially covered asset inside Turkey. There's 2 kinds of spies when you're dealing with a foreign country. And those are the spies that everybody knows are spies, and they're usually attached to the embassy, and they'll have official titles like cultural chief, but everybody knows that they're there. And if they're caught breaking the rules, they basically get PNG'd and sent back home here. Then there are the not officially covered spies, the ones that everybody hopes nobody knows are there. And it appears that this pastor may have been one. So his arrest had nothing to do with Christianity and everything to do with espionage or sabotage here. But it's brought relations between the U.S. and Turkey to the breaking point, and the indications are they are going to break. Turkey is clearly pivoting away from the United States. And one indicator of that is that Russia is getting ready to open a Black Sea ferry line reaching from Crimea to Turkey. And this is, again, taking some of the traffic load off of that bridge Russia built. But Crimea and Turkey are going to be getting along just fine. They're going to have the ferry. And apparently they've completed the negotiations with the freight shipping agents. And this ferry line will be open this fall, which is just a month or 2 away. We're getting to the end of summer here. Over in Gaza, even though Israel has reopened the sole commercial crossing yesterday, it's been a month without essential supplies getting into Gaza. Businesses have shut down for lack of raw materials. The hospitals are having to run only part-time because they're out of fuel. Apparently, they have run out of chemotherapy in Gaza for their cancer patients. And apparently Hamas has been observing a unilateral ceasefire, even though Israel bombed more than 150 sites across Gaza last week, Wednesday and Thursday, killing a pregnant woman, her toddler daughter, and destroying a prominent cultural center. Meanwhile, last Friday, during the protests along the Gaza border, 3 Palestinians were wounded by the IDF here. So, now, the Prime Minister of Malaysia, Mahathir Mohamad, basically had an interview with the Associated Press and basically said this whole idea of anti-Semitism was invented to prevent criticism of Jews who do wrong things. And he's saying, we're seeing this one race, this one religion, that cannot be criticized no matter what they do. And if you remember, Amy Goodman on Democracy Now! Had this former member of the Knesset who came on the show and admitted, yeah, it's just a trick to get people to shut up about what Israel's been doing. And you need to go back and read the history of just how the Anti-Defamation League came into being, because it was involving a Jewish businessman and a murdered girl, and the businessman was tried in a court of law and convicted for the crime, and the state's governor, also Jewish, issued a pardon almost immediately, at which point the convicted murderer was lynched. And the ADL was created basically, as this Prime Minister of Malaysia is saying, to prevent people from criticizing Jews who do wrong things. Okay, we've got a phone call waiting on the line. Layla in Ontario. Aloha, Layla. Welcome to the show. Please kind of keep it short today.
I will. I was going to say, that was the first thing I was going to say. I'm keeping it very short. I have only one appeal to all you Americans who have money to spend on vacations. Please keep it at home in the U.S. Do not go to any of the ostentatious, sleazy Arab countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, or any of those that are engaged in killing the innocent children. And furthermore, do not even come to Canada and spend your money here. Canada has been a parasite on the U.S. for a couple of centuries. Keep your money at home, protect yourselves, and protect your own economic interests. And that's all I've got to say today.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And of course, again, Layla will be our third-hour guest next Wednesday because, as many people have noticed in the emails they've sent on in, she has a wealth of historical information that I think we all need to hear. So, Layla, thank you very much for the phone call. And we're going to let you go here. The phone lines are now empty again. Here's a good example of why you shouldn't live in a fantasy world. And apparently, there was this millennial couple who decided to go on a bicycle expedition over there in the stand areas. And they did it specifically to prove that humans in general are kind. And they ran into trouble when they got to Tajikistan, which is a country with a known terrorist threat. And they were riding their bikes through the country when a car rammed them. And 5 men got out of the car and stabbed the couple to death, along with 2 other cyclists, one from Switzerland and the other from the Netherlands. Now, in theory, most people are kind and good, but there are extremists out there. And you do need to just evaluate that threat on a realistic basis. I understand they tried to do something symbolic to say the world, can be peaceful. It really didn't work on out. And I feel sorry for the families involved here. Okay, now, Vladimir Putin has sent a telegram to Kim Jong-un inviting North Korea to boost ties. So again, the more the U.S. throws its weight around, the more they try and bully other countries, the more they're driving those countries out of the U.S. sphere of influence and into alignment with Russia and China. Now, interestingly enough, in an article that came out of North Korea News, Moon Jae-in is quoted as saying that inter-Korean cooperation will bring true liberation. And he's saying that North-South economic initiatives could raise $150 billion over the next 30 years. They're going to do it. They're going to reunify. They're already hooking back up all the roads and the rail lines across the DMZ. It's going to be a big mess trying to clean that DMZ up because of all the landmines buried there. They're going to reunify. And then Kim Jong-un won't need nuclear weapons. And if South Korea follows North Korea into closer relationships with Russia, then the U.S. blew this one. They lost this one too. They're not doing very well over there. But yeah, once they reunify, Kim Jong-un can get rid of his nuclear weapons. The U.S. will have absolutely no reason to go into North Korea. They will have lost this villain that they wag at us to keep us all scared, throwing our money at the military-industrial complex. Now, turning to our domestic politics, the Me Too movement really took off. Women are coming on out and saying, oh, me too, I was harassed, I was abused, I was this, I was that. And now it's backfiring rather horribly on the liberals, because the Democratic National Committee said it is reviewing allegations against its deputy chair, Representative Keith Ellison. 3 days ago, he was accused of physically and verbally abusing his ex-girlfriend. Now, this is a classic example of hoisting with your own petard. And that's exactly what has happened here. So that one didn't work out all that well here. Okay, article that came out of Zero Hedge. And it's talking basically about this nationwide anti-Trump editorial blitz. Apparently, the editorials all come out tomorrow. It's all synchronized. It was started by the Boston Globe. They've got 350 newspapers are going to come out with this article, just say Trump is a threat to free press, and you know he doesn't respect freedom of speech. Well, first of all, I think this counts as collusion between the Boston Globe and all these other newspapers. But Trump isn't against free speech. He's against corporate media that is being less than truthful to the American people, and so are all of us. That's why we're here in the independent media. What we're seeing is the corporate media is now throwing a tantrum. They finally realize they can't control what Americans are thinking, and they're out there screaming their vitriol at Donald Trump. They've launched a major war against the independent media because we make them look bad. We keep putting out the truth to undermine their lies, and lying is what they're paid to do. So, anyway. Now, as you know, over at the Mueller, I guess we can still call it an investigation, they're still trying to get Trump to sit down for a face-to-face meeting. They're trying to lay a perjury trap, or basically just goad him into losing his temper and saying something that Mueller can say, oh, this proves all the allegations about obstruction of justice and so forth. And his lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, is saying, this is not really a good idea, because it's obvious this is a Hail Mary pass from Mueller. And interestingly enough, Jeff Sessions came out a while back when people were asking why there wasn't a special counsel looking into Hillary Clinton. And Sessions said, well, there has to be actual evidence of a crime before you can have a special counsel. But there's been no evidence of collusion. And the way Mueller's special counsel was set up didn't even conform to the requirements of the law, where there has to be a previous normal Department of Justice investigation before they go off on this fishing trip. But Giuliani is saying that they're looking to quash the subpoena because there has been no evidence in 19 months of this so-called investigation. And they're saying they will fight this subpoena all the way to the Supreme Court. So there's going to be a fight there. By the way, Manafort's case has gone to the jury. Everybody's waiting with bated breath to see what's going to happen with that one. Donald Trump is out there once again saying that there's no credibility to this Russia investigation. It's all gone. And he's absolutely right. 18 months, untold millions of dollars, they found nothing. All they had was the Christopher Steele dossier, which was a big pile of Hillary-funded bovine excrement. That's all they had. It's all they've got. So they're thrashing around. They're trying to basically drag this out to November so the Democrats can campaign on it here. Meanwhile, according to Philip Giraldi, in an interview with Sputnik, said that Russiagate proponent Bill Browder should be in jail. He definitely committed financial crimes in Russia. Russia does want to talk to him about that. But this guy, he's not what you would consider to be an honorable person. And Browder established this Hermitage Capital Management and basically apparently scammed a $230 million rebate from the Russian state treasury, for which his company was raided by Russian officials. Okay, now Brennan is out there again screaming about his revoked security clearance and saying it's an attack on free speech. Well, Mr. Brennan, as I understand a security clearance, anything covered by that security clearance is not supposed to be talked about freely anyway. More when we come back from these words from our sponsors.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know. If they don't do something by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, the panic is on. Can't get no way, can't draw no pay.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And once again, Republic Broadcasting is standing there hands outstretched, little collection plate there. We need your help. We're in a war. You can see it right in front of you. It's broken out into the open. The corporate media, the government, the special interests, they want to shut us down because they want to go back to that wonderful little world where they could tell you any lie at all and you would just happily believe them. Vaccines are safe. GMOs are good for you. Glyphosate doesn't cause cancer. Saddam has nuclear weapons. Spain blew up the USS Maine. And the independent media has taken that away from them. So if you can help out, and Republic Broadcasting really does need it, the postal address to send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Road, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number to call on in with a debit or credit card donation or to pledge to be a recurring subscriber is 800-724-2719, extension 1 during normal business hours, extension 3 at all other time. So the network thanks you. Okay, we're getting on back here to John Brennan, who's out there screaming about his revoked security clearance and how it's an attack on free speech. And as I pointed on out, you're not supposed to talk about the stuff covered by that security clearance. Did Brennan just admit he's one of the big leakers? Now, I'm sure if Brennan gets hired back into some government position, his security clearance can be reactivated. But this is just another way to scream and cry about Donald Trump here. And here's where it gets a little bizarre. Democrats are rushing to back Brennan. They're all lining on up and saying, Brennan's a good guy. He's a man of honor, and, Donald Trump shouldn't have pulled his clearance. And Representative Adam Schiff, ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee, said that in adding John Brennan to his enemies list, Trump demonstrates again how deeply insecure and vindictive he is. Now, when I had a security clearance, which was really a long time ago, I didn't get to keep it. It was nowhere near as high as Brennan's is, I'm sure. Actually, it was kind of low down, but it was still a security clearance. And when I stopped doing the work I was working on, the clearance was revoked. Now, Fox News had a little graphic up earlier today about the other people that Trump is considering revoking their security clearance. There was a face obviously not there, and that is, of course, Hillary Clinton. And I would like to know, does she actually still have her security clearance, especially after James Comey admitted on TV she's very careless with classified information, if not being treasonous? Does she still have her security clearance? And if so, why isn't she on the list to have that clearance revoked? There's something funny going on here. Now, what's really ironic about all these Democrats lining up to defend John Brennan is he was spying on them. They should be very angry with him because apparently Brennan was leading the investigation for leaks from the Obama administration. And now these people that Brennan was clearly spying on, now they're standing by him and say, oh, yes, Trump is bad, Brennan's good. So a war of words is continuing. And according to Ray McGovern, in an interview over at Consortium News, he's saying there may be more trouble for John Brennan, that he may be facing some legal problems because of things that he has done. Now, getting on back to Omarosa, she's still trying to create a mountain out of a molehill. And MSNBC, she was on MSNBC, and this time she had another recording. This one was Lara Trump, the wife of Eric Trump. And apparently after Omarosa was fired from the White House, Lara Trump offered her a job, which was a very, very nice thing to do. And Omarosa came on in with her recording of Lara Trump offering her the job and played it like it was a new bombshell. And it was a dud. Even the people on MSNBC said it was a dud. Now, I have a question. Who else did Omarosa record? And I have to wonder if there are people out there who are concerned that they themselves were recorded surreptitiously by Omarosa. And if she and those recordings might in fact pose a threat. She's flinging those things around with wild and reckless abandon. That makes Omarosa a liability. And liabilities don't stay around too long in Washington, D.C. We got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Did you know that neither the American Medical Association nor the American Bar Association were established to benefit the American people? Have you recognized that in our country, healthcare has little to do with health, and that our court system has nothing to do with justice? The priests of both medicine and law have been incentivized to implement a dark agenda on behalf of the Bilderbergers and their ilk. To protect ourselves and our progeny, we need to take a much closer look at how these two giant industries really work. Join me, Al Whitney, on In Defense of Humanity, Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central, as we expose the matrix and learn how not to consent to our own destruction.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, distract yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far 5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And we're talking about Omarosa, who met Trump during Celebrity Apprentice, and then he hired her as an advisor, and then he fired her. And now she's out there peddling her new book and making all these kind of allegations, which are falling apart. And the claim that somebody who was a producer on Celebrity Apprentice told her there was a tape of Trump using the N-word has now come on out and said, no, there's no such thing. It's not there. And her book tour apparently is not going very well. She has just rubbed everybody the wrong way. Now, Omarosa could be in trouble. In Washington, D.C., it operates under what's called the one-party consent law for wiretapping. Every state is different, so you need to be aware of the rules. Basically, it is legal to record a conversation as long as one party knows it's being recorded, which in this case would be Omarosa. So she's not going to be prosecuted for breaking the wiretapping law. But it is known that some of the recordings she did make were inside the White House Situation Room, which is a no devices area. So there might actually be an espionage, a Title 18 violation right there. Okay, we're going to take a phone call. Steve Elkins, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, to add to things that she can't explain when she's trying to paint Donald Trump as a racist, I just found out yesterday that I guess Donald Trump had dated for a while a model by the name of Kara Young.
Okay.
And she's a very light-skinned black, and the relationship was a good relationship. But at the same time, he was also dating Melania and had decided to go that direction. So it's kind of hard to paint that picture of somebody being a racist and hating black people when you're actually dating one.
Yeah, and here's what's really interesting, and maybe this is the reason Omarosa is doing what she's doing. Apparently, the latest polls are showing that Trump's approval with black voters is on its way up. It's hit 36%. And I think with Hispanics, it's approaching 30%. These are demographic groups that the Democrats are counting on to take the House in November.
You know, Michael, we don't see it too much these days. I know back in the 70s and 80s, we saw defamation of character lawsuits out there. When you said something, you had to have some kind of evidence to back up what you say. You just can't say things that to defame somebody. And I actually tell you the truth, I'd like to see a big push for more defamation of character lawsuits, because it seems to be something that's not pushed any further these days. And you can say whatever you want. You can harm somebody's reputation, and you walk away scot-free. Well, tell you the truth, I think we need to make an example out of some of these people.
Well, I would agree with her on that, but of course, that's what Alex Jones and Wolfgang Halbig are facing, is a defamation lawsuit for implying that the supposed parents of the victims of Sandy Hook were liars. And of course, if you remember that one video of the guy who was supposed to be the father who just lost his child, and he walks out of the building and he's laughing and smiling and joking, and then you can see him just go through that actor's exercise to work his way on down to where he's looking shocked and traumatized. And maybe the reason Alex Jones is being targeted specifically, not solely, but specifically, is the prosecution's lawyers are getting a sense the jury is not buying the government's case here. And if the jury comes back and acquits Alex Jones and Wolfgang Halbig, it's going to be a big, huge story, and the government's not going to want that to get out. We'll get it out there. We'll get it out there if that's what happens.
Yeah, exactly. I think the day in court could be a good thing for us, and that the truth comes out and show these facts. You're right. Show that video to show, is this normal behavior for somebody who supposedly lost their child? It's not.
No.
And crisis actors that were in the and the exercise actors, sign in here, and that the school was actually shut down years earlier for asbestos and other things. And I talked to another person, Paul Preston, and he said, as he works in the school system, he said he found absolutely no records whatsoever for maintenance orders for that school. Now, I don't know about you. Kids tear up a lot of things. There's always maintenance orders, things that have to be fixed in a school.
Yes.
zero maintenance orders, which proves the fact that that school was a non-functioning school. That school was closed.
Yes, it was. I mean, for one thing, there was mold all over the place. You know, children would not be allowed into an environment like that because of the health issues. As Wolfgang himself pointed on out, there were stairs that were missing steps. There were handrails that were missing bits and pieces. None of that would be allowed in a functioning school.
Exactly. That's it, Mike. Thanks you.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go here. Getting on back to Omarosa, very interesting article out of 12160.info, basically saying that there are surveys being taken among Black Americans, how they feel about Omarosa, and Black Americans view her as a two-bit opportunist, a racial sellout, ego-driven hustler. So she's not doing very well out there, and like I said earlier, it doesn't look like her book tour is working out. Nobody's buying her book. I certainly have no intentions to buy it myself. Okay, well, looks like we have another caller on the line. Jim in Chicago, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Michael?
Yes, you're on the air.
Hello?
You're on the air.
Okay. You know, with all of these sexual scandals in the Catholic Church, don't you think it's about time that the federal government has some hearings on Capitol Hill and maybe even take away the Catholic Church, 501(c)(3)?
501c3. There's a problem, though, and that is the fact that we have that First Amendment. And I'm sure the Catholic lawyers would come back and say, you're picking specifically on us, and that's unconstitutional. So what would have to happen is for Congress to basically, pass a law that says all churches of all denominations and all faiths, blah, 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 blah. But the issue is there are, in fact, laws already on the books. They are simply not being enforced. And that is really the scary part. Now, this one coming out of Pennsylvania, this is just horrific, where we're talking about more than 300 predator priests, and this was this huge grand jury investigation. They've identified more than 1,000 victims, and some of the things these priests were doing, they would make the child gratify them orally and then tell them to rinse their mouths out with holy water. They made one boy pose naked like Jesus, and this is pretty depraved stuff. And the real problem, of course, is the Catholic Church covered it all up, as they always have. And by the way, this story is getting a lot more coverage in the foreign press than in the American corporate media here. Local affiliate Fox 5 interviewed Cardinal Donald Wuerl, who's the Archbishop of Washington, and basically says he's not going to resign. And apparently Wuerl himself is accused of part of the cover-up.
And not only that, though, you have not heard a word from the Vatican or the Pope.
Well, actually, the Vatican just issued a statement. It was just on Fox News. I don't know what they said because I was doing the show here, but apparently the Vatican has come out with something. But this clergy sexual abuse has been epidemic for a huge, huge time. And nobody knows when it started. But even people within the Catholic Church are starting to come on out because down in Tampa, Florida, at the Epiphany of Our Lord Catholic Church, there's a Latin Mass priest, Father Edwin Palca, who has actually started writing articles in the parish bulletin saying this is a problem and it really has to stop. Now, he's trying to lay it all off as a symptom of the flood of gay men into the priesthood. And it may be linked. We don't really know because there's no hard information as to what's really going on. But it has been going on. I mean, if you remember that movie, The Spotlight, there was that documentary about priests who were sexually abusing deaf boys, boys who were born unable to speak and unable to hear. And they used sign language because nobody could understand the sign language when the boys were out there trying to complain here. And so it was a huge mess. Now, interestingly enough, up in Canada, they just took down the statue of their first prime minister because of his links to establishing the residential schools in Canada, where a lot of kids were abused and killed. Then we have what was going on over in Great Britain and Ireland with all those church-run orphanages who were literally selling kids to wealthy Americans to adopt. It's horrible. How do you say that this church or that church or any church represents the supreme moral authority on earth, or represents God's supreme moral authority on earth, when they're doing stuff like this? And again, it's not just the Catholics. It's a big problem with the Catholics. But we had a story on whatreallyhappened.com today about a rabbi who's come forward and said, yeah, it's a problem here as well.
Michael, then answer this question. Do you think these politicians are also complicit or involved in the situation as well?
I don't know. If you go back and you watch the movie Spotlight, which is based on a true story, it was basically just this idea that all these people had been raised religious, and part of that religious upbringing was you never questioned the nuns, you never questioned the priests, and there was just this huge reluctance to break this story open. Most people just couldn't believe it was going on. And that's what made the Spotlight's breaking of the story so important. But now people understand, yeah, this is a reality.
You know, even going back before the Spotlight, you had the Franklin Chronicles, which talked about things like this.
Yeah, the Franklin scandal wasn't as closely embedded in the church. Yes, it involved the Boys Town orphanage, but that one was more on the civilian, if you will, side, and did involve children being trafficked, apparently all the way up to the Bush White House. And there was a documentary made about it. It was scheduled to air on TV, and a bunch of Congress critters called up the channel that was going to air it and said, if you air that, we will write laws that make it impossible for you to stay in business. So the documentary was pulled, and an unknown party bought up the entire production run of VHS copies of that documentary, and of course they vanished. Fortunately, there was an editing work tape that survived, and you can still find it out there on YouTube, that talks about just horrific this scandal was. And it does seem like there's a lot of very sick people out there. And I understand that molesting a child isn't really about the sex. It's about the power statement or the thrill of getting away with something that most society finds to be absolutely repugnant. But still, it's wrong. And, you know,
do you remember?
Sorry?
I was going to say, wasn't it like 8 years ago at Penn State they had the big scandal?
I don't recall from Penn State.
Was
Next
it,
commercial break, I'll
Sandusky?
take a look.
Okay. Yeah, because I recall that it was like 8 years ago with Skandusky and the head of the football.
Yeah, but he was molesting somewhat older students, which doesn't excuse what he did. But, you know, you're looking at what's going on with these churches, and some of these kids are just so young. And what's being done to them forces them to become adults and cheats them of a childhood. And that's the real crime.
Right. Well, Michael, thank you very much. You take care.
All right. Thanks an awful lot here. And we're going to switch over to Dustin in New Jersey. Aloha, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
And don't forget about Dennis Hastert. You know, he was a wrestling coach, wasn't he? And he was messing around with it's everywhere. And Mike, you know, if you think about it, it could be a worldwide ring of shuffling kids around too, because they got no problem shuffling drugs and weapons worldwide. So, you know, human trafficking is just another part of that, you know.
Well, they think that's what was going on down at the border with Mexico when these adults are coming in with a child and saying, this is my child, and then they do a DNA test and they find out, no, it isn't. There is a concern. These children are being brought into the country for sexual trafficking. And it's sick. I view it as absolutely sick. And don't get me wrong, when it comes to consenting adults, I'm a very loosey-goosey kind of guy. Whatever you want to do with your partner and small kitchen appliances and a sheepdog, that's your business. But when it comes to children, I draw the line. I have some very primitive instincts that kick on in regarding the protection of children. And I'm not ashamed of them. Okay, I'm not ashamed of them, and I'm glad to see that effort that came out about 2 weeks ago, where they were trying to normalize pedophilia and say we're just people too, and there's nothing wrong with what we do. They've gone away, so apparently they got the message that no, America is not ready to accept what they do.
What about instead of No Child Left Behind, hashtag No Child Left Alone? Because, you know, this scandal's been going on a long time with the Catholic Church.
Yes.
You know, and I'm Catholic, you know, not like, you know, practicing or anything, but, you know, I was born, you know, raised like that. But, like, you know, you would think, you know, don't leave your kids alone with anybody. You know, I mean, you know, with kindergarten, you can't even trust, you know? I mean, my God, you know, you can't trust the priests anymore. I mean, who the heck can you trust?
Or the teachers. Or the teachers.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been these cases where teachers in schools are having sex with their students. And is it just part of the general deterioration and decline of our society? Or are all these people on prescription antidepressants and they can't control their impulses?
All right, Mike, I'm going to switch gears. I still got time. I want to talk about Mitch again, and I hope he calls in. You know why, Mike? Because that's his freedom of speech calling it. See, that's what he doesn't understand. You have the ability to call in. If Mike Rivera gets pulled off the air, we can't voice our opinions or anything.
Yep.
So, Mitch, you wouldn't be able to call in no more. You know what I mean? So, how are you going to let people know what you stand for if you can't call in because Mike Rivera is taking off the air? And like Mike, you said, and you know, John Elkin, you know, we all know this is not about Alex Jones because look at what they did to the Ron Paul's director.
And there have been more of them today here as well. Now, Mitch was pushing an agenda trying to make Alex Jones seem unsympathetic so we wouldn't support him. But it is about the First Amendment. Anyway, stay on the line. Got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away. Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Do you or someone you know suffer from chest pain, blood pressure, cholesterol, or irregular heartbeat? Are you looking for a more natural solution to overcome these health challenges? You hear the ads all the time. If this stuff's so good, why doesn't my doctor prescribe it? That's easy. Doctors are not trained in natural medicine. Extendivite Heart Tonic does want you to be as healthy as you can be, and it really works. Take Extendivite for 6 months and your doctor will say, I don't know what you're doing, but don't stop. It's working for you. Get the dependability of Extendivite. Just see how you feel in 6 months. A 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid is only $69.95 plus shipping and handling. Call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite. We will not go down in the night without a fight. You can burn up our mosques and our homes and our schools, but our spirit will never die. We will not go down in Gaza tonight.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. We're talking with Dustin in New Jersey. And basically, you know, Mitch was pushing an agenda. And his agenda, and it wasn't just here. We were seeing this all over call-in shows and everything. They're trying to make Alex Jones look bad so people don't sympathize with his situation. They're trying to create this climate where Americans are going to say, well, he's not a nice guy, therefore there's no big deal about him being deplatformed. And I don't think it's working. In fact, I think the social media corporations weren't prepared for the pushback that has been happening here. Facebook actually restored access to Telesur's webpage. They put it back up. They didn't explain why they took it down in the first place, but it's back up as of today.
Hey, Mike, I want to switch gears now. I want to talk about Chris Cuomo, who's like a cheerleader for Antifa on CNN.
Yes.
You know, I mean, what an embarrassment. You know, they're the ones doing all the violence. They're the ones wearing black and just like the brown shirt. I mean, my God, like this guy's totally corrupted, just like his brother is, Andrew Cuomo in New York.
Yes.
He's a tool. Hey, Mike, did you see? I kind of have to agree. I mean, what do you think what he said, America was really never that great?
Well, obviously, you know, it's made a lot of people very, very angry, including Donald Trump. There was a time when our nation was great, the greatest nation on earth. And again, I think back to that wonderful monologue, that opening monologue on HBO's The Newsroom, where the character of Will McAvoy just gets up there and says, no, America's not great anymore. And he goes down the list of areas where our nation is in decline. And then he continues to say, we were at one point. But for Cuomo to say that, he's basically trying to tell the people of New York, things are not going to get better, and that is not what they want to hear.
Exactly. Hey, Mike, one more thing. I just want to pat myself on the back. I was the one who called you, that was 2 days ago, about the Caspian Sea thing, because you were like saying somebody called. Mike, if you have time, or the listeners have time, if you go on Al Jazeera documentary, just type in Al Jazeera documentary on YouTube or Al Jazeera Caspian, and watch the documentary on the Caspian Sea thing going on. It's new. It was only posted a couple of days ago. It's about the big deal. I mean, you're talking trillions and trillions of dollars. Like I said, this is a game changer.
Yes.
I mean, people don't realize how big of a deal this is, you know? Well, that's all I needed to say, Mike. Have a good show.
All right, thanks an awful lot here. And we've got another caller waiting on the line, but I'm going to leave him until after station identification because we're almost at the end of the segment. Meanwhile, Queer Eye star Jonathan Van Ness went out on Twitter and basically urged his fans to be tolerant of other ideas and saying that not all Republicans were evil and racist, and boy, did he get attacked. That's what the liberals are pushing. All Republicans are evil and racist, and anybody who doesn't go along with that, they're just going to shred the guy. So the propaganda is getting very extreme out there, and of course, the good news is that when it gets that extreme, people recognize it for what it is. All right, we're going to take a break for station identification. We'll be back with hour number 2 after these few words.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, keep it today.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. Hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. One of our members just put up a story. Apparently, Omarosa was fired from the Clinton-Gore White House 4 times. So think about that for a while here. All right, let's take another phone call. We're going to talk to James in Sacramento. Aloha, James. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Michael. Hey, I don't mean to keep calling in, but you keep talking about subjects, and I've been silent for so long. And one of the things you were talking about earlier was, the way what is it? The whites, the WASPs, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. They came into the Americas and they were going to tame the savages. My family's Cherokee.
Okay.
And then I don't have to say Indian after it. It's just Cherokee.
Yes.
I always hate that when somebody says, "Oh, Cherokee, Indian." You're Lakota, Indian. It's like no, that was a guy that was lost from Genoa that thought he was in India. So let's get that straight to begin with.
Well, actually, no. Columbus knew the New World was there. He'd gotten it from his wife, who was hooked in with one of the Templar families, and the Templars knew that the New World was here as well. And by the way, that's a common misconception that Columbus said they're Indians. No, what he did was he described them in Dios when he was writing about them in his journal, in God. And because his first...
in God and not indigenous.
Well, anyway, Christopher Columbus, when he first arrived in the New World, he thought the indigenous people were actually pretty cool because they were very welcoming. They were curious about him. So he wrote glowingly of them.
We traded syphilis for tobacco and cancer, so yeah. But
okay.
As far as that's a joke. Come on.
Okay.
Come on, Michael, get that. All right. So anyway, we traded. But anyway, my family comes out of Georgia, and they're actually really, they call themselves Oklahoma Cherokee. And the reason why they call them Oklahoma Cherokee is because they had to do the March of Tears.
Yes.
The Trail of Tears. They actually, and they actually owned slaves. I mean, here you go. I mean, these guys were trying to be white people,
Well, hold it. I have to cut you off here at that point because slavery has existed throughout history, and it wasn't just white people. African nations had slaves. China had slavery.
No, the Native Americans had slaves from the different tribes they would overrun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you know,
what is the point you're trying to make?
You know what's funny is that. Well, my point is that I'm trying to make is that the Cherokee were really trying to integrate with the white people on the eastern coast.
Yes.
And then Thomas Jefferson came in and he said, you know, after all the stuff he said, you know, like a typical politician, and then he said, we're going to move all of you guys out to the Indian territories in Oklahoma.
Yes.
You know, and that was my family, brother. I mean, dude, it's, you know, and I mean, I'm cool with it because, I mean, I'm mixed. I mean, I've got black, I've got Caucasian, I've got French, I've got Northern Native American, I've got Southern Native American, I've got, you know, I mean, my family is a mix of everything.
Well,
I mean,
in this day and age, it's hard to find anybody who's pure. I mean, my racial background is a mixture of Sephardic, Chinese, French, and English.
Well, yeah, I know you talk about being Jewish, and then they.
No, I'm not Jewish.
The Spanish Inquisition.
I'm not Jewish.
Well, no, the Spanish Inquisition made you guys turn Catholic.
Yeah, and my family was Catholic up until my father's generation. I myself am without any religious faith, and you know, Sephardic is an ethnic group. Jewish is a religion.
I totally agree. Totally.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not trying to pick you out there and put you down. I'm actually with you as far as religion goes. It just blows my mind. What is the word atheist? Does it mean I don't believe in God or any power? It just I don't believe in theism.
Yes.
I don't believe in theism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, James, we're going to have to let you go because we're got a lot of stuff to get to. Thank you very much for the phone call. And we're going to get back here to our domestic political news after we do a shout out to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. Now, for the longest time, the Democratic Party has basically refused to accept campaign donations from the fossil fuel industry because part of their presentation to the voters is we're for a clean planet, we support human-caused global warming, and we're never going to take money from those evil oil companies. Well, they just changed that. DNC Chair Tom Perez has reversed an agreement to ban accepting money from the fossil fuel industry. Now, it's caused a firestorm of protests, mostly over at Greenpeace, and it's reminded everybody that the Democrats' policies and principles are very flexible, especially in the presence of large amounts of cash here. Okay, we're going to take another phone call. Brendan in San Francisco. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
A lot of the censorship that's going around. There's obviously a concerted effort to stifle our voices. And it got me to thinking, push back maybe some strategies. One being, translation of these information put out. I think it's important to try to.
Okay, for some reason, your connection to me keeps cutting out. Can you try speaking just a little bit louder?
Okay, I had you on speaker.
Oh, okay, that'll do it.
I think that a lot of the alternative media, or whatever you want to call it, truth media, how's that? I think we need to start broadcasting in Spanish and Arabic and try to get our voice out even further, because what's happening, the division that's being created, it's actually working, and you can see this Trump derangement syndrome. I live in San Francisco. I see it every day, and it is a cult-like event. Now, I love the cult of people, especially Christians, because I do believe the lines are being drawn, and that it's going to come to events. And Spanish folks should be allies, and Muslims and even Jews that are awake. We need these folks to start speaking out in supporting the truth, and that's what it's coming down to: lies and truths.
Yes.
And they have the power. They have, and I recommend this site called No More News, because he's very critical of Israel and their whole Dome of the Rock and blow it up, whatever.
Okay, Brendan, I'm sorry. We're going to let you go because for some reason your call is breaking up, and it's very hard to understand you. So there's some issue with the phone lines somewhere. All right, so
I'll try back.
So we're going to let you go. Thank you very much for the phone call. Getting on back to the news. Let's talk about the economy for a while. As you know, the tariff war with China is continuing. Starting on the 23rd of this month, an additional $16 billion of exports from China to the U.S. will be subject to a 25% tariff. China has signaled that they would impose an equivalent amount of tariffs on U.S. imports. And China and the U.S. are apparently quite far apart, and China is looking for alternative strategies to force a resolution of the deteriorating trade situation. Now, China has announced they're sending a delegation to the U.S. to discuss trade, and that resulted in the yuan taking a major jump upward. Now, the question is, are they going to talk about ending the tariff war? If Trump is going to do his, you do what we want first and then we'll do for you, that's never going to play. That will never play in Beijing. But again, it's causing a lot of damage to our economies. It's hitting us all at the supermarket and the gas station. We had that caller on the phone the other day talking about how the price of beer in aluminum cans has gone up because of the tariffs. Over in Turkey, getting on back to the hostilities that are kicking up between the U.S. and Turkey, the Qatari emir is basically vowing a $15 billion investment in Turkey following a meeting with Erdogan. And this signals that multipolarity has arrived in the Middle East. It's no longer unipolar under the control of the United States. U.S. influence in the region is clearly in decline. And along that same line, we have the story out of Mint Press News on how more nations are ditching the dollar and switching to their national currencies to settle bilateral trade deals. Now, right now, because we're not a manufacturing powerhouse like we used to be, and especially because other countries don't want our GMO crops, forcing other nations to use the U.S. dollar and charging interest on that is pretty much the only thing still holding our economy together. And at some point, we're going to see all these nations, they're all going to bail on the dollar at the same time. And that will be a bad thing here. Zero Hedge article, U.S. sanctions foster emergence of multipolar world. And Russia, Iran, China, and now Turkey are in the same boat. They're all the target of U.S. sanctions. They're refusing to bow under the pressure, and they're basically moving closer together and doing business with each other. All these sanctions and tariffs are doing is isolating the United States politically and economically from the rest of the world. Okay, let's take a few more phone calls. Francis in North Carolina. Aloha, Francis. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha. Hello to you both.
Thank you.
James that you just had a moment ago, was he from Georgia?
You know, I've already scrolled that off the top of the screen. Let me see if I can get that back here real quick. James.
Well, regardless of that.
Yeah.
Okay, regardless of that. Well,
he was in Sacramento.
Oh, Sacramento. Okay. Well, to James in Sacramento, I have this to say. CEO Sagili, Asta to hear from you. Denada Gohi, and that's pretty much it.
Okay.
So, if he speaks Cherokee, which I presume he does, it might be the Western Band or it could be the Eastern Band, but if he speaks the Eastern Band, then he knows what was said.
Okay, well, I don't, and it's been years since I spoke Spanish, ever since I left Southern California, so I'm not capable of doing a Spanish broadcast like his suggestion was, and I've never spoken Arabic. I am trying to learn a little Russian and Chinese just in case we get invaded. Anything else, Francis?
Well, even if you learn a little bit of Russian or Chinese for that matter, can be not just because in the event of possibly being invaded, it can be just simply out of courtesy.
Yes.
To be able to speak such languages. And mostly a lot of the language is based upon syllables or syllabary for that matter. So the only reason people tend to make out it so difficult and hard is because they're not paying attention or listening. So anyway, with that, I'm out of here. Later.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Paul in New Jersey. Aloha, Paul. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael.
Hello. You're on the air.
Yeah, Michael, one of the things I got to admit I'm kind of enjoying in a schadenfreude kind of way is the watching the persecution of Alex Jones in the sense that he, being a staunch libertarian, is basically being shut down in a capitalist media. And let's be honest about this. I love YouTube. I think it's one of the greatest things that ever happened. Let's be honest. They're not my pipeline. No, they're not my provider. It's a website I choose to go to. So I find it ironic that many of the libertarians out there are rushing to a government solution out of this, when meanwhile they're the ones who decry big government and going to the government for solutions in the private capitalist sector. See, and so we're seeing basically capitalists like Alex Jones, free market capitalists, complaining about other capitalists. And this is what I like about you, Michael. You know these corporate fat cats and oligarchs running Silicon Valley. They're money junkies. And you might be lumped in with me, because I have to admit, I'm not just a pure capitalist. I think you need a little socialist or government intervention to keep these capitalists in line.
Well, there used to be a way to do that, and it was called basically having a tax system that limited the collection of massive amounts of wealth into just a few hands. It worked really well at the beginning of this country, but it's now gone away, and the tax burden has been dropped onto ordinary Americans who are just not able to get by any longer. As far as as far as capitalism is concerned, we're living in a corporatist government right now. We've gone totally fascist, where corporations and government are aligned together. So corporate censorship of the independent media does represent state censorship of the independent media.
True, but let's admit it too. Facebook has stock, so does Google.
Yep.
So to me, you don't get more capitalist than that when you have stock, right? And you have shareholders out there.
Yeah.
And part of the problem I have is these plutocrats, and I am with you. I want to see very high graduated income taxes, because I believe, and it's kind of a somewhat askew from what our founders thought, but our founders thought they didn't want political power in the hands, or too much political power in the hands of one individual. I don't want to see too much economic power in the hands of one individual or individuals working together.
The two overlap. Look at George Soros. He uses his wealth to wield political power, and you're absolutely right. The system is broken. because the founding fathers wanted to keep all power and authority diffused across the nation. Some of it belonged to the states, some of it belonged to the counties. The federal government was intentionally limited, and they definitely did not want the bankers accumulating enough wealth to where they could simply buy their way into power. But, the bankers, starting with the First Bank of the United States, were back to playing their old games. And now, of course, we're living under the Third Bank of the United States, also known as the Federal Reserve. And they don't hesitate about using their tremendous wealth to basically buy the Congress to keep passing more and more laws that benefit the financial sector at the expense of the rest of us. Anyway, Paul, got to take a commercial break. Got to let you go. Thank you for the call, and we'll be right back.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you one from Amazon.com. I just wanted you to know I saw my doctor and I laughed because he said, "I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it." I have been taking Extendivite. I had borderline high blood pressure, heart flutter, high cholesterol. I changed my diet and included Extendivite with an amazing turnaround for the better. A few months later, I had a doctor's appointment and took a stress test. I passed. No heart flutter, blood pressure was perfect. My doctor even took me off my medicine. I thank you truly from the bottom of my heart. This stuff works, and I'm so grateful for Extendivite. Thank you, Justin G. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And we're talking about the economic news here. Out in California, their housing affordability has just plummeted to a 10-year low. Now, it's 2018. Think back on what was going on in 2008. And it did involve a real estate bubble that made houses all but impossible to buy, except for those who were into investing in houses here. Americans' real wage growth has slumped the most in 6 years. It's another bad indicator here. Apparently, Shanghai gold withdrawals are brisk. Apparently, some of this has to do with the coming Silk Road. And of course, behind it all, there is this reality that the global debt is estimated at $250 trillion with a T. And that does not include the derivatives exposure. And the reason the whole world is in such debt is because of the very nature of private central banking, which creates money out of thin air and then loans it into circulation at interest, and by design produces more debt than money with which to pay that debt. Now, the stark reality is that that $250 trillion can never be paid off. It's basically the accumulation year over year of all this growing interest debt, and there is no physical money to actually pay it all off unless they try and inflate the debt away, in which case we'll be down in Zimbabwe territory walking around with little paper notes that say $100 trillion here. Okay. Let's talk about the refugee crisis, the immigration crisis. And there's an article that came on out from the Organic Prepper, which is yet another reminder. The politically correct Western media keeps covering up violent attacks by extremists. And we're not being racist when we say something has to be done about the extremists, although that's usually the liberal response. Oh, you're being racist if you want to talk about how this person committed a rape and that person committed a robbery. And corporate media in the US, Europe, Australia, Canada, they always try and report these stories with a pro-immigration bias, because that's their job, to sell you the idea of a one world government where we're all blended together and nobody has a regional, cultural, historical identity. Now, down in Australia, one of their members of Parliament, Senator Fraser Anning, basically came on out and said that Muslim Australians are not integrating into the society. They've brought in with them a threat of terrorism, and they do not work, and they live on welfare. And we're seeing that happening up in Europe as well. Over in New Zealand, they just passed a law that bans overseas buyers from purchasing existing homes in New Zealand. And basically it said would stop New Zealanders being outbid by wealthy foreign buyers, which would turn the New Zealanders into simply being tenants on their own land. Now, up in Germany, the leader of their left party, Sarah Wagenknecht, has launched a new political movement called Stand Up. Now, interestingly enough, Sarah is left-wing and she's pro-immigration on principle, but the new Aufstehen movement, basically says there has to be a limit. We're all pro-immigration, but there has to be a limit because just unlimited access to the German labor market by all these refugees is unsustainable and cannot continue. So even pro-immigration people, and what they're talking about in Germany is what we used to have in this country. Immigrants are welcome, but there are limits and there are rules. And you get to come on in, you get to fill out the paperwork, you get to be a citizen. This whole open borders idea is nonsense. No nation in history has ever had totally open borders since borders were invented. It's all coming out of this globalist agenda to blur us all together so we have no idea who we really are, to make it easy to control us here. Now, here's an interesting story. You remember that terror attack that took place in London? Was carried out by a Sudanese pretending to be a refugee who applied for refugee status claiming that he left Sudan in fear of his life and that he couldn't go back without being killed. It turned out he had a visa to go back to Sudan on holiday. It was just a big joke. And then, of course, he went on off with that car and killed a bunch of people. Now, Sadiq Khan is actually calling for a ban on cars to prevent future terror attacks. I don't think that one's going to fly very much. We got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Do you worry a lot? If you're forgetful, nervous, moody, or overwhelmed, chances are you're not protecting yourself from the ravaging effects of stress and anxiety. No matter the cause, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, your quality of life, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in as little as 1 to 2 weeks and increase your ability to recall facts, names, and numbers in 4 to 12 weeks. Calm and Clever was created by scientist Kurt Hendricks, a principal investigator in 2 NIH-funded studies on Alzheimer's disease. Try Calm and Clever for 2 months. You'll feel the difference. Call 1-800-758-8746 or go to calmandclever.com.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And over in North Carolina, they basically caught a Mexican citizen voting in the U.S. elections. He illegally voted in the 2012 and 2016 elections. Roberto Hernandez Carrenta of Zebulon, 57 years old, was convicted on 2 counts of voting by an alien, and he got 4 months in prison. Well, it's a good start, but we know there's something like 3.5 million illegal immigrants in this country, and they're being courted by the Democratic Party. Now, Hernandez is a legal resident, ineligible for him to cast ballots in U.S. elections. Now, getting on over to New Mexico, there's some very bizarre stuff happening around that compound where there were these kids that were being kept and trained to be school shooters. For one thing, the entire compound has now been destroyed. And, you know, they found the remains of a 3-year-old at an underground tunnel. And so basically it was just uncollected trash and rubble, and everything else was destroyed. I'm sorry, that's evidence. And it may mean there's never going to be a trial. Now, a lot of people are very upset over this New Mexico judge's decision to free the 5 suspects that were operating this heavily armed camp, where prosecutors allege 11 malnourished children were being trained for jihad while on the FBI's radar. Just think about that. The FBI knew this was going on and did nothing. And despite finding the decomposing body of a 3-year-old boy, supposedly killed in a ritual ceremony by his father, who's the son of this famous imam in Washington, D.C., the judge, Sarah Backus, released the 5 Muslim extremists on a $20,000 signature bond, meaning they don't actually have to pay it, and admonished the prosecution for Islamophobia. So what the heck is going on? They tear down the compound, they let these guys go, they scream Islamophobia. Somebody committed murder. They shouldn't be out on a signature bond. And the FBI knew about this camp all along. So, my theory, this was an FBI setup for more false flags for the gun grabbers. They're going to teach these kids how to shoot up schools and then start sending them into schools. And the operation got blown when the compound was discovered. That's the only thing that makes sense with them destroying the compound. Now, over in the European Union, they're expressing concerns, suspicions, if you will, that British spies bugged the secret Brexit talks. Big scandal. I would not be surprised at all. Everybody bugs everybody. But apparently, the last time the EU officials were being spied on and questioned publicly was under the Obama administration in 2013. And this was exposed by Edward Snowden, saying, yes, the EU was being spied on. And 5 years later, the Telegraph reports that the EU's Brexit negotiators fear they are being bugged by the British Secret Service after the UK obtained sensitive documents within hours of them being presented to a meeting of EU officials last month. And like I said, I'm not surprised. This sort of thing does, in fact, happen. Everybody's spying on everybody. The government's spying on all of you. Up in Sweden, the polls are shifting dramatically toward the nationalist parties. And Roger Matheson, he's a retired vegetable oil factory worker in Sweden, is basically saying the trains and hospitals don't work, but the immigration continues. And, of course, Swedish politicians are out there saying, oh, it's the nationalists who are doing all these car fires and everything like that. And Matheson came back and said, I'm not a racist, but I am a nationalist. I don't like seeing the town square full of niqab-clad ladies and people constantly fighting with each other. Now, Sweden is going to have elections in September, next month. And according to the polls, it could end a century of social democratic dominance and bring to power a little-known but hugely popular nationalist party often dubbed far-right and right-wing populists call Sweden Democrats. So again, we're seeing this pushback to all of this open border nonsense. According to a recent survey, 73% of the Swedish population thinks the country is going in the wrong direction. Oh, and by the way, if you're thinking about vacationing in Sweden, better take along some protection, because HIV has jumped by 372% thanks to cultural enrichment. Since the borders were opened on up, HIV is spreading all over the country. All right. This is a very, very sad story. And it's out in California again. And it involves a highway patrol, a chip, who's been arrested for apparently long-term sexual assault of a 12-year-old girl. And Michael Richard Jocelyn's 35 years old, and they basically arrested him. They fired him from the highway patrol, and there's a long, long list of charges against him. Well, the gun grabbers are back out there again. They are trying to do the march on the NRA. This took place back on August 4th in Fairfax, Virginia, just outside the NRA's headquarters. And what they're out there saying is, it's time to dismantle the Second Amendment and ban fully semi-automatic weapons. And they're only showing their ignorance. There is no such thing as a fully semi-automatic weapon. But they're out there just pushing that agenda. And one protester, whose first name was Amy, didn't get a last name, came on out there and told the National Rifle Association's camera crew she supported a full repeal of the Second Amendment and stated that she did not think civilians need guns at all. And another one of these gun grabbers declared that people shouldn't have the right to defend themselves and their families against home intruders. That a gun ban is absolutely what's necessary. And went on to complain, we have people who think it's okay to kill an intruder into their house. Yeah, actually it is. And the argument coming out was that a home intruder would not receive the death penalty from a judge, which is a totally bogus straw man argument. If the home intruder kills somebody in your home, yeah, they're going to get the death penalty. Now, it would be great if we lived in an ideal world where people didn't need guns to protect themselves from would-be criminals or an overzealous tyrannical government. But that's not the world that we live in, and that is why we have the Second Amendment. Now, I'm one of those people who, in times past, had to chase a criminal out of my home with a legally owned firearm. And I'm very grateful I didn't have to pull the trigger. I just had to put the laser dot on the forehead, and they were gone. By the way, the average wait time for a 911 call in this country is now at 21 minutes. And you have the possibility the cops could show up and just shoot you, because that's been happening more and more. Let's talk a little bit about corporate media here, because Fox News is doing really good in the ratings. CNN is now losing to cartoons. They have worse ratings than Nickelodeon, SpongeBob SquarePants, and CNN was beaten by HGTV, USA, the Food Network, TLC, and Hallmark. And all those networks also beat out MSNBC in the ratings. That's why they're panicking. They're on the edge of going out of business, because the American people don't like being lied to, and they're tuning them out. And all they can think of doing is trying to shut down the independent media to protect their business, to protect their money. It's all about the money. We've got to keep the money coming on in. No, the corporate media chose to stand up shoulder to shoulder with a government that lied to us about things like Saddam's nuclear weapons, and they lost their viewership. There's nothing in that Constitution that says we, the people, have to believe anything the government says, let alone the corporate media. It's not in there. And by the way, the Constitution does not, in fact, give the U.S. government permission to lie to us. That's why they hate the Constitution so much here. So getting on back to Alex Jones, InfoWars is now on BitChute. He tried to move to Vimeo. They pulled the plug on him. BitChute is an uncensorable peer-to-peer video platform for free speech, and Alex Jones' channel on BitChute has hit 21,600 subscribers. So a little bit of good news over there. As I mentioned earlier in the show, Facebook has restored the Tellerser page with a very vague sort of explanation. They're now trying to say it was a technical issue, that there was instability on the platform. Okay. Now, the Australian reports that Facebook Media Relations Chief Campbell Brown privately disclosed that Mark Zuckerberg is totally indifferent to publishers. And Facebook's attitude toward the news media, the corporate media, is a simple choice. Work with Facebook or die. And apparently Zuckerberg was being quoted as saying that if corporate media does not work with Facebook, quote, I'll be holding your hands with your dying business like in a hospice, end quote. See, this is what I mean about too much money in too few hands causing too much of a problem. And the founding fathers tried to prevent that, and they succeeded for a while. But all governments eventually tend toward corruption, and we're there. We're there. The money power is trying to re-engineer the nation to their benefit, which means more money, because they're addicts. They're money junkies. Look how much money some of these billionaires have, like Zuckerberg and Soros, and yet they got to have more. I got to have more. I need a new thrill. I need another billion to come in today to feel good about myself. Over at Rolling Stone, Matt Taibbi has come out with an article saying that censorship does not end well, and asks a very poignant question. Why should we put Mark Zuckerberg in charge of everything that we see, read, and hear? And the answer, of course, is we shouldn't. We absolutely should not. Now, yesterday we reported on this story where the FCC had shut down Alex Jones' flagship radio station. That turned out to be fake news. The station in question was actually shut down last year over a completely unrelated situation. Apparently, they owed the FCC a bunch of fines that they weren't able to pay, and they lost their license. So that was a fake story out there. Twitter is now admitting that they ban users under pressure from foreign governments. This was another Project Veritas undercover investigation that caught a former Twitter software engineer admitting Twitter acts under the whims and pressures of foreign governments, most notably China, by silencing and banning users at their request. And this video comes in the wake of 3 undercover videos inside Twitter by Project Veritas exposing a senior network engineer admitting Twitter will give Donald Trump's personal DMs to the Department of Justice, their unethical shadow banning tactics, and Twitter's creepy virtual profiles of all of its users, which it sells to advertisers. Now, apparently, in the December 14th, 2017 meeting, an undercover Project Veritas journalist asked Miranda if foreign governments pressured Twitter to ban certain people in their countries, and Miranda initially told the Project Veritas journalist he cannot disclose that information. Then later on, he said, yeah, it happens all the time. So everybody needs to start hunting down for these new up-and-coming social media platforms that are not yet compromised by the government and the corporations and way too much money. And we need to start using them. And need to start using mailing lists. But even the ISPs may be ordered to block mail. There's a lot of email that I send out that never reaches its destination. I get emails from other people saying, I sent you thus and such, never arrived. Now, maybe that's just Spectrum being Spectrum. But I'm smelling panic coming out of the Beltway and from corporate media. They don't know what to do. They do not know what to do. Meanwhile, apparently there's going to be a big protest outside the headquarters of Twitter in San Francisco this coming Friday. And I hope we can arrange for there to be a really, really large crew. And the hashtag for the demonstration is hashtag Big Tech Blackout. So you may want to go on in there and take a look. And if you can make it there, show up. Obviously, it's a little too far away for Claire and I to get there. But if you do go, send pictures. I want to post them. Okay. Now, a lot of people used to use the Firefox browser because Mozilla was an organization with a strong history of supporting free speech and open access to information. But now Mozilla has been convinced to join the dark side of the force, and they're pushing an information trust initiative that would block independent media sources at the browser level while favoring corporate media giants like CNN, which is this huge collection of deliberately fake news. So they're definitely panicking. I mean, if SpongeBob SquarePants is beating out CNN, you can see why they're in a panic. All right, we got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
About 6 months ago, my wife bought Extendivite. She didn't tell me she was giving it to me. So after about 3 days, I said, maybe the weather's changed or something. I said, my legs feel really good. And she goes, well, I've been giving you this stuff, and it was the Extendivite. And you know that I'm about 75% better. I can actually climb stairs now, and I can get up out of chairs. I can even get down, and I have to work under a table or a computer table and work on a computer. I can actually get back up off the floor. You know what? It's an amazing product. I can't believe I didn't think anything short of having surgery was going to help.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. After just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll-free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221 or go to the website angioprim.com.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility. provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And I just put up this article at whatreallyhappened.com. Apparently back in 2015, the United Nations was out there saying that governments around the world ought to license people to post on the internet in order to control the content. And it looks like we're headed back that way again, that governments, use their licensing prerogative and turn the internet away from this libertarian free-for-all, into some kind of social commons, meaning government control of content. But there may be some pushbacks. And people are starting to talk about what are the possible legal ramifications of what's going on with these tech giants. And one suggestion came on out that Alex Jones should sue the U.S. and the companies that censored him in the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg, France, and seek redress both against entities within the U.S. government which issued the illegal order or the transnational corporations that carried it out. And I hope Alex Jones goes for it, because we're in a serious situation here. The government and the corporate media are very angry that they can't lie to you anymore and be believed. They miss that. They want to go back to the good old days of the first Cold War, where they could scream commies at you and you'd wet yourself and fling your money and your children into whatever war was being desired. Those days are now gone. Now, some months ago, George Soros was out there saying social media was a menace to society. And now he appears to have changed his mind because he's investing in Facebook, Twitter, and streaming services Spotify and Pandora. So maybe it's George Soros who came on out and bought enough of an interest in these companies to say, I think you should be deplatforming all of these people. Because the independent media is definitely a major roadblock on his plans for a one world government, one world central bank. Meanwhile, over at CNN, if you're not busy watching SpongeBob SquarePants, they're out there claiming that independent media is a terrorist network that should be criminalized and exterminated. I'm not kidding you. This did not come out of The Onion. And I may be annoying and obnoxious and irritating. I'm not a terrorist. I don't advocate violence. I advocate reasonable discussion of the issues and our right to question what we are told by the government and the corporate media, because we have been lied to so many times. All right, we're going to take a break here for station identification. Back with hour number 3 after these few words.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you some from Amazon.com. It really does work like the review says it does. I cannot believe that after the first few days, I didn't feel as sluggish or clogged up. It has had a profound impact on my physical, emotional well-being. I'm skeptical as most people about products and their claims, and I never write reviews, but this is a wonderful product and I recommend it to everyone. Great product. It has brought my blood pressure from the mid 150s over the 80s to the mid 130s over mid 80s, along with diet and exercise in just the past couple of months. Excellent. Thank you, David. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth. What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show, hour number 3. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And over at WordPress, they're starting to basically shut down sites. They shut down Jay's Analysis. Apparently, they shut down Fellowship of the Mind with no warning for violating the terms of service. And again, it's very important for people who run blogs. You got to get your own servers. You got to get your own servers. If you're in the Microsoft Cloud or you're running a WordPress site, they can pull the plug with no warning, which is apparently already starting to happen. Now, over at Project Veritas, they have decided to come up with a new web platform. It's called Veritas Leaks. And it's a parallel to WikiLeaks that offers anonymity, collaboration, and impact. And Project Veritas is hoping that people are going to blow the whistle on things that Project Veritas will then look into, and probably should look into here. Okay, now Shopify, which is an e-commerce platform, banned InfoWars and all of InfoWars products. Alex Jones sells a bunch of stuff through his website here. They've now yanked the plug out from Franklin Armory, a popular firearms accessories manufacturer. Now, there's nothing illegal about what Franklin Armory is doing, but this is part of that liberal agenda. Censor the independent media, take away the guns. Okay. Over at Tesla, which is just having a really, really bad time, there's been a whistleblower who has released a list of the vehicle identification numbers of Model 3s known to have punctured battery modules. Apparently, there's some kind of an issue when the cars are being assembled. The battery module can be punctured. That is a bad thing. And Tesla's trying to make good on his promise for a high production rate, so stuff is getting through. It's almost like the end of the movie Gung Ho, where they're just cramming the cars out the factory door, and some of them don't even have engines in them. Now, apparently, the board of directors of Tesla are starting to lawyer up. There's already talk of a lawsuit against Elon Musk for fraud, because he may not have, in fact, had the funding to take the company private. And apparently, the more Elon Musk's tweeting is worrying people. And so the board is figuring out what's going on here. And if Musk did not have the funding and he made that announcement, maybe it was to temporarily boost the company's stock to force losses on the short sellers. Now, that's stock manipulation. That is illegal. And I understand the Securities and Exchange Commission is already looking into it. I wish they'd been that fast with Bernie Madoff with the loot here. Okay, Amazon is now being accused of allowing cheating customers to unfairly get refunds from online sellers. And this was an issue kicked up by SaveMyLight.co.uk that sells lighting components and claims Amazon has a policy of refunding buyers at the drop of a hat to keep them all happy. The problem is that, according to this retailer, he's saying customers have been refunded even when they didn't return the goods or return goods that were clearly damaged while in their use. And some have even gotten refunds for returning goods that Save My Light does not even actually sell. And so the chargeback procedure on Amazon is in chaos and is continually being abused, with more and more buyers exploiting this now openly known loophole. Buy goods, file chargeback, get money back, keep goods. Okay. Up in British Columbia, they've declared a state of emergency. They've got hundreds of wildfires burning across the province. It's not just California, it's up there in Canada as well. And they've declared a province-wide state of emergency in response to the wildfire situation. And Minister of Public Safety Mike Farnworth basically came on out and said public safety is always our first priority, and as wildfire activity is expected to increase, this is a progressive step in our wildfire response to make sure British Columbia has access to any and all resources necessary. Now, interestingly enough, they have identified how the Carr Fire, C-A-R-R, got started. It's now the 8th largest wildfire in California state history. It started on July 23rd near Redding. It's claimed the lives of at least 7 people. Firefighters are still trying to get control of it. And it turns out the fire was started by accident with a minor incident. There was this couple that were traveling with a trailer and they got a flat tire. And the steel rim for that tire scraped the asphalts and the sparks lit up dry brush along the highway. Well, this is why part of fire prevention is that you clean up the dead brush near the roads. That's what's supposed to happen. You have the brush cut back and disposed of so there's nothing but dirt in case there is a lit cigarette or sparks from a tire rim or something like that. But it wasn't being done. California is spending huge amounts of money on the illegal immigrants and the refugees and a bunch of other stuff. They're not taking care of the state itself. The fire break roads were not being maintained. The dead brush was being allowed to accumulate, and that's how this fire got started. So we're in a wartime economy. We're seeing the effects of a wartime economy. They don't want to admit it, but that's what's going on here. Over in Maryland, there was a citizen who contacted the Maryland Department of Health to find out why they were so keen to push the HPV jab on 11-year-old children. Now, that human papillomavirus shot is only good for 5 years. And they're giving it to kids who, by the time they actually become sexually mature, they'll need another shot, and it's an expensive shot. So this gentleman went over to the Maryland Department of Health to find out what's going on, and he was shown letters from the Maryland Department of Health outlining the new policy. And he contacted Dr. Jinlin Chan, who'd signed the letters, and she could not provide any evidence to back up that there's an actual need for the vaccine. And he then contacted Dr. Ken Lin Tai, director of the Cancer Control and Prevention Unit at the Department of Health, but she couldn't provide any evidence either. And finally, he met with Dr. Howard Haft, deputy director of the Maryland Department of Health, who said it was CDC. Yet CDC's policy is to not take positions on state-specific legislation. So apparently the citizen, and I'm sorry I don't actually have his name here, I didn't get it when I copied the article over here, suspecting there was something else going on, he filed a Public Information Act request with the Prevention and Health Promotion Administration and found out that the Maryland Health Department had received $91 million in funding from big pharma nonprofits specifically to promote the HPV vaccine in Maryland. It's all about the money. It's all about the money. And by the way, there's a video up at whatreallyhappened.com talking about the HPV vaccine, about how it's all risk and very, very little benefit. And I got an email associated with that video about another case study where this perfectly healthy young lady, and she goes in for the HPV vaccine, which, by the way, is 3 shots, not 1. And apparently she was in school athletics, very bright, excellent student, nothing wrong with her. And she gets the first shot, and she starts to feel a little out of it. Then she gets the second shot, and she feels really sick. Then they give her the third shot, and she's so sick, she stays home from school. And when her parents came home at the end of the day, they found her dead. So it's all about the money here. Between 2011 and 2016, fracked oil and gas wells in the U.S. pumped out record-breaking amounts of the wastewater, which is laced with toxic and radioactive materials. This is a Duke University study saying that the amount of wastewater from fracking rose 1,440% in those 5 years. And over the same time, the total amount of water used for fracking rose roughly half as much, 770%. Now, previous studies had suggested hydraulic fracturing does not use significantly more water than other energy sources, but those findings were based only on aggregated data from the early years of fracking. Well, one of the reasons it doesn't use as much water for the fracking is because the fracking fluid has things in it other than water. It has these toxic compounds. It has radioactive elements. We had that phone call. This was some years ago. Somebody who had worked in the fracking industry who said these fracking companies were making deals with other industries that had problems with toxic waste disposal. And they made a deal to basically take this toxic waste, mix it in with the fracking fluid, and shove it on down into the ground on the theory, since disproven, that it would stay down there. And the Duke University researchers are saying that this spike in wastewater is going to continue as fracking expands, which makes a lot of sense. I think it would have been better to take all that money invested in the fracking wells and really look for an alternative energy source. But the oil companies, just like big pharmaceutical companies, they have a lot of money and a lot of lobbyists, and they don't want anything to change. Because if somebody comes out with an alternative energy source, they get all the money from now on. Over at Manila, a Chinese Boeing 737 has had a crash landing. And apparently this flight from Xiamen, China, had to circle Manila for about an hour before it tried to land. It tried to land once. It had to do an abort and a go-around. On the second landing attempt, it skidded off the runway. The problem is they've been having huge, huge rains in Manila, and the runway was just very wet and very, very slick. So now, as you know, the FDA supposedly is keeping an eye on pharmaceuticals to make sure they're safe, to make sure they work. Actually, these days, the FDA just accepts the word of the pharmaceutical corporations, who will do their own research and say, yes, this is wonderful stuff, and the FDA rubber stamps it. But there is another aspect out there that people may not be aware of, and that is medical devices that you will see in the pharmacies. And this has been a big problem. There was a documentary about it called The Hunting Ground, and the director, Kirby Dick, basically started with this ancient monochrome public service film featuring the late Raymond Massey. And the actor cautioned that while the old-time medicine man and his snake oil are being eliminated by tire regulations, there's a new quackery, which is equally dangerous, and that's phony machines and devices which are supposed to diagnose and treat. And unlike new drugs, therapeutic devices do not have to be proved safe or effective before they are sold and used. And today, it's a $400 billion industry, and it's still pretty much unregulated. Now, there have been whistleblowers from inside the FDA saying there are even fewer safeguards than in the past. when it comes to medical devices, we built a system that does not work. This is from David Kessler, a former FDA commissioner for both the Bush and Clinton administrations. And there is a lot of quackery out there. Now, I have a family member who's a doctor, and down here at the bottom of the hill, we have this drive-in movie theater, defunct. The screens have been taken down. It was a 4-screen theater. And they used to have this wonderful little flea market there. Right now, it's an overflow lot for all the cars. But one time when Claire and I were down there, I found this very weird little box. It was wood on the outside, black on the inside, and had all kinds of wires and coils on the top of it, and a whole bunch of things that plugged into it. And I did a little research, and I discovered it was what was politely called an electrotherapy machine, where it would send electricity through various parts of your body to heal. It even had a comb on the claim that the electricity could stop the baldness. And yes, it was pure quackery, absolute pure quackery. And I sent it to my family member who is a doctor, who appreciated the humor of it. I'm pretty sure she does not have it displayed in her office. But yeah, even today, brand new stuff on the shelves of the pharmacy. If it's a medical device, it doesn't have to be proved to be safe or effective. They can still sell it. Money, 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 money. Okay, now getting back on over to Harvey Weinstein, and I don't tend to do a lot of entertainment news. But this one is definitely worth following because a Manhattan federal judge has ruled that a sex trafficking lawsuit filed against Harvey Weinstein can move forward. Weinstein's lawyers tried to get it thrown out. The judge said no. Now, British actress Kadian Noble has alleged that the movie producer assaulted her, and in her lawsuit filed in November, claimed that he violated federal sex trafficking laws when he promised her a film role if she went to his hotel room in Cannes, France in 2014. That's the Mann Act right there. And plaintiff has plausibly alleged Harvey Weinstein knowingly and in interstate commerce enticed and recruited her, knowing that means of force, fraud, or combination of the two would be employed to cause her to engage in a commercial sex act. I'm not sure how commercial it was. After all, he promised her a movie role. But yeah, a lot of sleaze. And in a way, I'm kind of glad I'm out of Hollywood, because it was just a mess over there. By the way, for those of you who are music fans, Aretha Franklin passed away today. She was 76. And they were showing videos of her on the TV, and very, very overweight. Okay, let's take a phone call here. Joey in Colorado. Aloha, Joey. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. It's amazing to get through you so fast. I used to call the Alex Jones show, and that would never happen. I was wondering if you've heard of No More News, KNOW, with Adam Green.
Yes.
Yeah. You guys seem to be really on topic or on the same page about a lot of stuff, and it'd be cool if you could have Adam Green on to the show.
Yeah, it's been suggested to me before, and I'm trying to get back to where I have more guests in my copious amounts of free time. We're going to have 2 guests next week, so I'll try and get him on.
He's a good guy, man. He's a good guy. But I just been tuning into you lately. Your news is very different, man. I appreciate it a lot. It goes a lot deeper than what else is out there. So God bless you, brother.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for the kind words, and thank you for the phone call. We're going to let you go. And again, the phone lines are open for anybody who wants to call in before the end of the program. Over in Japan, things are rocking and rolling over there. They have issued a volcanic warning level for this peak on, I know I'm going to blow this, Kuchinora Bujima Island. And it's 620 miles southwest of Tokyo. And they're preparing to possibly evacuate the island. I took a look at it earlier today in Google Earth, and it is a small island. And if the volcano erupts, who knows where the lava is going to be going. They also had 2 magnitude 6 quakes out there near Iwo Jima. No tsunami warnings issued for Hawaii. All right, we're going to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back after these few words.
My name is Don Wiskin, and at 42 years old, I suffered a massive heart attack, lost 35% of my heart to damaged tissue, and was supposed to spend the rest of my life on disability. What did I do? I took Extendivite, a garlic and cayenne mix of 7 herbs which rebuilt my heart and gave me back my life. For over 17 years now, I have made this formula available to you, so you don't have to suffer the same thing I did. Clean your blocked arteries and strengthen your heart and boost your natural immune system. I'm 60 years old now and I still work every day. To get your Extendivite, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com. Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
Welcome to What Really Happened Radio. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. And now, set your eyes on the future and let's consider what really happened.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. Getting on back to the news. Here in Hawaii, the volcano seems to be calming down. Over there on Kilauea, the U.S. Geological Survey has basically come out with what they call a lull analysis. But the lava flow from Fissure 8 has essentially stopped as of a couple of weeks ago. Outside of spontaneous rock falls, there have been no more collapse events at the summit of Kilauea. The VOG has been much less. the air is a lot more clear. And most of the people on the Big Island are saying, yeah, this one is finally over. The USGS, of course, is hedging their bets and saying, well, it could be a lull and we could see a revival. But I think most of the people on the Big Island are thinking about, trying to get back to some kind of a normal life and recover from this. Certainly the people of Volcano Village are hoping that with the volcano quieting down, that tourism will return, because they took a major, major financial hit from that volcano. Now, here's an interesting little article. This came out of Sputnik News. And it's basically the United States is expressing concern about a Russian satellite that is exhibiting what the U.S. considers abnormal behavior, implying it is a weapon of some sort, but of course without any evidence to actually back it up. Now, the U.S. has repeatedly rejected out of hand attempts to prevent a space arms race via an international treaty, and is developing its own hypersonic weapons capable of reaching space. And of course, as you know, Donald Trump has now announced the creation of the Space Force. Sounds like a 1950s science fiction movie here. And so U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Arms Control, Verification and Compliance, Yelem Poblet, said that we are concerned with what appears to be very abnormal behavior by a declared space apparatus inspector. And he's saying its behavior on orbit was inconsistent with anything seen before from on-orbit inspection or space situational awareness capabilities. A lot of big words thrown in there. Basically, what they're trying to do is sell the idea that it's in orbit, but it's in a different orbit that we don't like. And the U.S. government is basically angry that the Russians have an object in space they don't know everything about. And the cause of their ignorance is, of course, their own lack of interest in reaching a workable treaty governing weapons in outer space. So it's another scary Russian weapon. Oh, you taxpayers, you gotta fork over more money. We got to get on up there and make sure that Russia doesn't have an evil, evil satellite up there ready to just drop bombs on you or something. Okay. Apparently, universal basic income is now officially a part of the California Democratic Party platform. So that's what they're going to be campaigning on. Vote for us, we'll give you free money. Didn't the Joker do that in the first Batman movie? Jack Nicholson? And look how that ended out for them. Now, there have already been places that tried the idea of a universal basic income. It didn't work out. It couldn't be sustained because they couldn't get the money. You know, liberalism works great until you run out of other people's money, is really what it comes down to. Okay. Now let's get some other news out here a little bit. Apparently, Amazon is considering buying Landmark Theaters. So not just happy with e-commerce, they want to get into the brick and mortar cinema industry. And I assume, of course, that tickets to these theaters would be available over Amazon here. Over at Massey University, there's a humanities lecturer, Jonathan Tracy, and he's saying free speech or no platform, it doesn't really matter. It's still censorship. And he's concerned about it because apparently it's happening at Massey University. Apparently it's happening down in New Zealand. And he's out there saying, according to the Roman historian Tacitus, the key distinguishing feature of life under good emperors as opposed to bad emperors is that a good emperor leaves you free to think what you like and to say what you think. So obviously we are living under a bad emperor here. Story coming on out of Investment Watch blog. Apparently Trump is now starting to say it's time for Clinton indictments. He wants Sessions to reopen the investigation into the email server, citing that FBI's Comey and Strzok engaged in a cover-up. which is exactly what they did. Apparently down in New Zealand, Westpac has had to issue 30,000 replacement bank cards due to fraud risk linked to the Ticketmaster security breach. That was a real bad one. Okay, we're going to take a break here for some commercials. Feel free to call on in, 800-313-9443, and we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Many people tell us about their experience with Extendivite. Just listen to what Glenn has to say.
Prior to taking it, I had diabetic neuropathy. The Extendivite reduced that significantly. Acid reflux was reduced. I had athlete's foot, very severe. Trimmed that down to about 75% dandruff, almost completely gone. I had occipital neuralgia at the base of my skull. I was having migraines, reduced by about 90%. Heart palpitations, my heart would kind of stall out. I would skip a beat. Very uncomfortable. And when walking from downstairs going to sleep, by the time I got to the bedroom, which is just one flight of stairs, my heart was pounding, coming out of my chest. My vision was blurry. This completely solved that problem. Great product. Thanks.
Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just try it yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far 5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And you probably heard about the walkaway movement. These are liberal Democrats who've just decided they can't be liberal Democrats anymore. They've made some videos that have gone on out there. And now, of course, the Democratic National Committee is saying it's all a Russian plot, that nobody ever leaves the Democratic Party. It's all a Russian plot. Evil, evil, evil Russians. All right, let's take a phone call. Daniel in British Columbia. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, aloha, Michael. Yeah, I want to touch base with you on these forest fires that we have here in British Columbia, Canada. I've got a firefighter friend who is sitting around all spring and early summer itching to go back to doing his job. And I talked to him about the possibility of arson, and he says, yeah, everyone talks about it. They usually, apparently, they wait till there's some thunderstorms so they can blame it on lightning. And one of these firefighters' mothers was caught burning a forest down. That was about 1,500 fires, or 1,200 fires, I should say. And, they keep telling us this is the new normal. This liberal government that we just finished having wouldn't do anything about the fire breaks or clearing out the brush for years and years, even though everyone says, you got to manage the forest. And another thing, too, is I was looking, there's a city in called Winnipeg, Canada, and my brother sent me this thing about interesting facts. And turns out in 1936, the highest temperature was 102 degrees Fahrenheit, which for Winnipeg is unbelievably hot. So this idea that, we've got this runaway global warming and it's not the sun, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. It really is, and they're trying to blame global warming. Now, here in California, they did arrest 2 arsonists, so we do know that arson is definitely an issue. And I'm surprised that a fireman's mother would have done that. Maybe she was just trying to create job demand to keep her son employed. So
yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
It's a shame because if they just managed the forest and cleared the brush and dealt with the fire breaks, which they have, and they have the possibility. There was a huge fire here a couple of years ago in Canada called the Fort McMurray fire, and apparently the Russian government offered to help with some of their water bombers, and they got turned down from the Harper government, I guess because they were starting to vilify Russia at that time, and they wouldn't want to admit that they couldn't handle it. So it's kind of a shame. So it's really thick smog here, or smoke, I should say, and I can barely see any of the hills behind me. Another update I want to that sort of terror camp in New Mexico. Apparently, a judge or a prosecutor has overruled the judge, or he's applying to overrule the decision of the judge. And another update was that Hungary, or George Soros has bailed out of Hungary finally.
Yes. Well, they passed all kinds of laws against what he was doing here. And that thing in New Mexico, that's just weird. I mean, the FBI knew what was going on and just let it go on. They were training these kids for school shootings. And when they finally got discovered by immigration authorities, then a judge orders the place literally bulldozed, destroy all the evidence out there, and then this other judge, maybe it was the same judge, says you can all walk on out of the courtroom on a signature bond. To me, this stinks of a cover-up of some kind.
Yeah, anytime the FBI is watching these guys or is aware of them, then it's kind of a red flag right there. It just seems like they're just trying to agitate things. Just doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't make sense. The destruction of the compound and just releasing these guys. I mean, there was a dead 3-year-old. Somebody should be up there on a murder charge, and you don't let somebody who's potentially going to be charged for murder walk out of the courtroom without paying a bond. So there's something very funny about this whole story.
Well, there's social justice warrior judges out there that are, they just they miss Obama and they miss the good old days, and I don't know. Trump has to get rid of Sessions. I don't know. He needs to clean house. But that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. Trump's biggest mistake coming into office was he wanted to be magnanimous in victory, and he let all these Obama holdovers stay, thinking they were going to be loyal to him because he's now the boss. And that may be the way it works in the business world. That's not how it works in Washington, D.C. politics. Everybody's compromised. Everybody has secret connections and allegiances. Everybody's got an agenda. That I think was his biggest single mistake. Because he's been surrounded and outmaneuvered by the people around him ever since then. And I do wish that Trump would stop focusing so much on blowing up people in other parts of the world and start looking at what's going on around him in Washington, D.C., or he's definitely going to be a one-term president.
Yeah, the whole thing right now, the media is talking about the fact that he got rid of Brennan and his security clearance makes him, they're trying to make him look like he's trying to hide something, which the optics on that it does look like that because people don't know how dirty Brennan is.
Well, again, the issue is Brennan doesn't work for the government anymore. He shouldn't have a security clearance. And this idea of these very higher up people still having access to classified information when they don't have a reason to have it, it's absurd. And again, I want to know, does Hillary Clinton still have her security clearance?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the voting thing too is really curious. Why he got rid of that commission that he started and gave it over to Homeland Security. It kind of makes me think that they got to him, or that's like touch that, that's ours kind of thing. Maybe he got the message not to fool with the elections and that.
Somehow or other he's been collared and put on a leash, and again, I think he's going to be a one-term president if he even makes it to the end of his first term, because if the Democrats get the House in November, they're going to impeach him. They won't be able to remove him from office because they won't have control of the Senate, but Trump basically is ignoring his own future political life by not addressing these issues of a national voter ID law, cleaning up the election system, and I thought he was going to be really serious about the vaccine safety issue because he brought in Robert Kennedy Jr., who's very serious about this issue because of the suspicions that Barron may be vaccine damaged himself. But yeah, somehow they've got control over Trump. He's giving them everything they want, and still they're trying to get rid of him.
Yeah, I think he was so gung-ho to get rid of Obamacare, and he tried twice, and he should have been focusing on cleaning up the election system, voter system. The good thing is the whole the Russians did it narrative. It makes it look like if there is any meddling or if there's any shenanigans, that they can't blame the Russians because
they already are.
The United States has to take. I know
they already are. The liberal Democrats are saying that the Russians are going to come on in and tamper with the midterms. They're getting ready to tamper with 2020. And like I said just before I took your phone call, now they're out there screaming that the walk-away movement is a Russian plot. They're just totally focused on Russia's bad no matter what happens. Anything bad happens, you blame Russia for it.
Yeah, it must be the forest fires all over. It must be the Russians, too.
I'm waiting for somebody to say
Mike,
that the fires in British Columbia and California are part of a terrorist plot that tracks back all the way to Russia. It's only a matter of time before we get there.
Another funny quick story. There's a gay pride parade here in Kelowna, British Columbia, and the master of ceremonies is a Syrian refugee that happens to be gay. And it seems funny because, all you have to say is because he didn't have a wife, it was like, oh, I'm gay, let me in. So, and everyone's up in arms here. They, but they can't say anything because it's not politically correct. You have to accept. And there's so many sheeple here that need to hear your broadcast, and I think a lot of your listeners need to go out and talk on other radio programs if you can find 1-800 numbers and just challenge these guys. Like the other day, someone was talking about how great John McCain was and what a, amazing hero he was. It's like, really, they need to hear the Rivero Rangers' point of view on these things. So, anyways, I'll let you go.
Okay, thanks an awful lot. And okay, just taking care of some technical issues that we're dealing with here. Okay, well, that was Daniel in British Columbia. And yeah, I'm surprised we haven't already had somebody come on out and say that all these forest fires are a Russian, Iranian, North Korean, whatever terror attack, deliberately setting all these fires, you know, to wreck the economy of California. Not that California's economy is doing all that good. All right, now then, let's see. Basically, Russia's latest supersonic 1,400 mile per hour strike bombers are rapidly nearing completion. Apparently, they're going to have their first test flights later this month. It's the Tu-22M3M, and they're saying it's basically a modernization of the Tu-23M3, which Russia's Air Force has about 100 in service. And they've been using it extensively in missions over Syria in support of the Assad regime here. Now, this one's going to get you giggling. Michael Avenatti is the lawyer for porn star Stormy Daniels. And apparently he is now saying, because of his newfound fame, that he's considering a run for the presidency in 2020. So that is going to be rather interesting to see. Apparently, he's basically an associate of Rahm Emanuel. Okay, now already talked about that one here. Down in New Zealand again. Boy, a lot of things going on in New Zealand here right now. Apparently, down in New Zealand, they're having a problem with off-label drugs. And what it means by off-label is when you get a prescription drug, the drug is prescribed to you for a specific reason. The drug is designed and engineered to treat one thing, but sometimes doctors will prescribe it for something completely different. They're not supposed to do that, but they do that. And apparently down in New Zealand, there's a big problem with New Zealanders being prescribed antipsychotic drugs for off-label reasons like just helping them to sleep. And that's a very, very reckless thing for them to be doing here. Story, this one's coming out of FortRust.com, where apparently somebody has leaked or claimed information that the Ukrainian army and Blackwater are preparing the use of a radiation weapon on the Donbass. And this anti-coup, anti-Maidan hacker group, Cyber-Berkut, received information about the preparation by the Special Operations Forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. They're going to stage a terrorist attack in the Donbass with the use of radioactive materials. And what it basically comes down to is they're going to dump this radioactive material inside water in the channel, where there's a withdrawal of water in the South Donbass water conduit, and then they're going to blame the entire leadership of the DNR. And apparently, the idea man for all of this is Eric Prince, the former founder and owner of Blackwater. And again, because they're attacking civilians, that's a war crime. And given the radioactivity and how far this could spread, I think you could say it qualifies as a weapon of mass destruction. This is one of the dirtiest wars we've ever seen. Nobody's complying with like the Geneva Accords or international humanitarian law. It's like we've already hit the total war idea. This is war. Everything that we do in war is fair. Well, we've been down that road in history before, and that's the reason why there are international treaties and international law, because not everything done in war is fair, especially the targeting of civilians, like Yemen did when they blew up that bus full of school kids. Alrighty, now We already talked about Jay's analysis being taken down. And apparently somebody has done a study that common household cleaning chemicals actually decrease your lung function over time. And of course, you all remember what I went through with Claire years ago when she was suffering this horrendous joint pain. And we went to the doctors, and she was prescribed medication, including one that was prescribed off-label. They gave her creams and lotions and ointments, even special shoes, and nothing really worked. And we figured it out for ourselves. It was chemicals in the household products and the cosmetics called formaldehyde precursors. And they're used as preservatives because these chemicals basically decay into formaldehyde, which, by the way, is a known carcinogen. And there's no regulation on it at all. It's used in carpet manufacturing. It's used in all kinds of stuff. The only law that actually regulates the use of formaldehyde is that it may not be used in baby shoes, in the glue that holds the shoes together, because formaldehyde is used in glue. So we got rid of all those products, and Claire's doing a lot better. And also, in response to a lot of email I'm getting from her, yes, her back is getting better as well. She will be on the show tomorrow, and we're actually very relieved. The news is getting better and better. Okay, we're going to take another break for commercials. We're going to be back with the last segment of our program after these few words.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, 2, keep it today.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield Tactical Bipods. AROutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AROutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
35 million people in the United States suffer with debilitating migraines. If you or a loved one are one of them, you need to know about MigraLief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist that formulated and patented the MigraLief migraine formula. MigraLief is a non-prescription dietary supplement recommended by neurologists, pharmacists, and pediatricians to address nutritional deficiencies in both adults and children over 2 with migraines. Try MigraLief for 3 months and see the powerful difference it can make in your life, or get your money back, no questions asked. Go to mig911.com or call 800-MIG-7354. You can change your life today.
So if you suffer from migraines, don't wait. Call 800-MIG-7354. That's 800-MIG-7354 or visit mig911.com.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know. If they don't do something by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, the panic is on. Can't get no way, can't draw no pay.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, final segment of our program on this Thursday. And apparently the jury in Paul Manafort's trial has adjourned for the day without reaching any verdicts. What they did do is send the judge, T.S. Ellis, 4 questions, one of which asked him to define the meaning of reasonable doubt again. And this may signal that the jury is leaning toward acquittal. But of course, there are multiple charges, and it may be acquittal on one and, guilty on the other, and we'll see. And again, I'm surprised that Manafort's lawyer didn't put Rosenstein on the stand, because Rosenstein supposedly investigated Manafort for these very crimes 8 years ago and walked away from it, said, "No, there's nothing here." Maybe Manafort's got, Sarniev's lawyer, the one who walked into the jury and said, "Yep, he did it. Absolutely did it." Okay, so a lot of people are reacting to New York Governor Cuomo's comment about America was never that great to begin with. Tucker Carlson has basically uncorked on him. And I'm very angry and upset about that comment as well, because there was a time when this nation truly was great. We were a manufacturing powerhouse. We were a breadbasket to the rest of the world. We were all those wonderful things that were in that speech from the newsroom, from the premiere episode. We had great technology, explored the solar system, explored the universe, actually. We did all those wonderful things. We can't do them anymore. We have definitely declined. But for Cuomo to say we were never that great again, and I know where he's coming from. He's basically trying to lower the expectations of the people of New York by saying it's not going to get better. What you're dealing with right now with the refugees and hunger and the extreme stresses and poverties, that's the new normal. You might as well get used to it. Which is what you tell a population when they're living in a wartime economy, which is exactly where we are. But for him to say it was never that great to begin with, I'm sure he wasn't really thinking when he said that. But I can understand why so many people are angry with him. That was a very dumb thing to say. This was once a great nation. It was a nation we could all be proud of. And if you look what it's turned into with this constant bickering between all these different groups here and which restrooms should men be allowed to use, the faction fighting in Washington, D.C. just out in full view for everybody to see. Attacks on our Second Amendment rights, our Fourth Amendment rights, our Fifth Amendment rights, and now the First Amendment is under attack. There are actually people out there saying, no, this freedom of speech, there's got to be an exception for Israel, there's got to be an exception for this and for that. The nation that I thought I was born into just doesn't exist any longer. All right, there's the music. Time to get on out of here and get some stuff done. Please stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please do me a favor. Go on out to other websites, blogs, call-in shows, and make a big stink about how we should not allow private corporations to decide for us what we see, read, and hear. That there is a First Amendment in principle still in this country. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.